Years ago, whenever I was building my last company, I was asked by a recruiter to join an exclusive executive MBA program, but I demurred. The company was growing fast. I was busy with clients and I had employees to manage. I told them, I have a lot to do. I just can't take on any more. They offered me a full scholarship. It'll cost you nothing, they said, except for your time. But time was the thing that I had the least of, other than interest. I was so sick of education. I have 240 credit hours, 3 degrees, two professional, electrical engineering, computer engineering, and a Bachelor of Liberal Arts, which was originally English composition, and then I moved into journalism. I was the valedictorian of my entrepreneurship program. I have a certificate in project management. I had been in school for about 87% of my life. I was educated and I was sick of it. More school? Ugh. School eventually ends, but nightmares about tests last forever. When it was time to start over again with Pain Point, I knew that last time everything about my company was way too far off target, out of bounds for traditional startup investing, which made everything far harder than it actually needed to be. Admirable? Maybe. Easy? No. This time I knew that I needed to stop fighting the inevitable and just build a web app. I'm a computer engineer and most of my work has been very large scale system integration, taking existing systems and gluing them together to make something that's more than the sum of its parts. I have like 60 patents, so I'm pretty okay at it. For my electrical and computer engineering program, I learned assembly, C, C++, some C Sharp, some .NET, methods for building embedded code for workstation applications. I had scripting experience from being a network admin from way back when. This is good stuff, but it wasn't web application frameworks. I built websites, so I knew HTML, CSS, some PHP, a little Python. Still not a web app. It was time to do what I had never really gotten around to, which was learning how to build a modern web app. And that meant that it was time to go back to school. I was a college dropout the first time. I went because everybody was like, oh, you're smart, you should go to college. It turns out that is a terrible reason for going to college. Education is a very powerful tool, but it's neutered through a lack of purpose. To do, you need to know why, or at least I do, because I seek purpose in my life. And my alma mater used to have me give talks to students until I told the students, don't go to college until you know why you're going to college, which was the last time they ever invited me to talk to students. Um, my statement might be true, but for the modern meat market that academia has become to the organization, flow is more important than purpose. But to the student, the one that's going to be burdened with lifelong debt for getting that education, purpose is way more important. I knew what I wanted to build, so I read everything that I could find that was about things that were like the thing that I wanted to build. When I was building houses, watching people build houses was a great education. It was never the same house, but it was similar. And that's good enough because what really matters is understanding the techniques. You need to know what to learn before you start learning. I already had a good idea of what I needed to know just from being terminally online for like my entire life. But knowing what you need to know isn't the same as knowing. And knowing is half the battle. having a good idea is the first step. And knowing what you need to know may be the second step, but you still have to put in all the rest of the work. So I studied trends in web app development so that I knew the current state of the art. I read developer blogs, articles about the tech stack from hot new startups, everything that would lead me towards the right now. I didn't really care what the application or the product was they were building. I cared how it was built and what tools they used. I signed up for Code Academy, an inter I signed up for Code Academy, an interactive coding platform, and I dove in. And I spent hundreds of hours reskilling myself in JavaScript, TypeScript, Next.js, React, Python, SQL, database management, state management, getting into the technical side of blockchain and crypto development patterns, UI, UX design. I installed VS Code. I familiarized myself with GitHub, NPM, Yarn, PNPM, full stack, front end, back end, authentication, authorization, app security, data security. I installed Copilot in VS Code. I turned off tab completion so that I could work on muscle memory. Coding, kind of like writing, requires you to know the rules before you're good enough to break the rules, and I wasn't ready to start skipping ahead. Eventually, I traded VS Code with Copilot for Cursor, and I'm still using Cursor today. So I downloaded repos for apps that I thought were interesting and tried to like absorb their development patterns just by reading through the code base. I spent weekends literally reading through application code bases for interesting apps. I hand recoded interesting elements to get more familiar with using known good code. I would literally rewrite the code myself just to, familiarize. I called software-oriented entrepreneur friends for advice, and two of them, who I really value for their directness, were like, quit making excuses and just do it. So there's no experience like experience. Another one pointed me towards some really powerful AI tools. I signed up for Claude. He was the reason I discovered Cursor. And the more that I went through the courses, the more time I spent working on robots.next instead of completing additional courses. And pretty soon I had a good enough grasp on how to build what it was that I wanted to build that I started cranking out that logical framework for how it would all operate, the major application functions. It was July 3rd of 2024. I was 3 months in, and I had a working local version. Working. But there was a problem. I had a lot of ground to cover from a working local version to an actually working app that lived on the internet. I still had a lot of ground to cover, and I couldn't possibly learn fast enough to stay ahead of the industry. I really felt time breathing down my neck. And to really build the system, it had to live online, not in a code base that was running on my local machine. That last step, making robots.next actually live on the internet, safe, secure, reliable, accessible, concurrent users, that was the furthest from my previous experience with software development that just lived on a workstation or lived on a piece of hardware. I needed help. And the first step to getting help is telling people that you need it. So that was next.